As promised, let's take a look at Houndoom V. Welcome back everyone to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch, and today we're going to be looking at a Houndoom V deck list. This is one of the fire cards from Darkness Ablaze. Hasn't seen a huge amount of hype, and it's kind of understandable as to why this card is a little bit awkward to work with, but I did say that if we got over 60 views on our last video, that we would show off the Houndoom list that Matt has been testing. Bear in mind that this list has a long way to go. There are definitely some changes to make, so if you see something that you don't like or that you think we can improve on, then please leave a comment down below and let us know what your changes would be. We'll jump over onto PTCGO now and check out the list and talk about how this deck is supposed to work. So this is the 60 cards that we've been running with so far, and it's an interesting deck to say the very least. Let's talk about Houndoom V first. This card, obviously the main attacker in the deck, so we need to understand how we're supposed to be doing damage with it. For 1 fire energy, we can do 20 damage with Searing Flame and then burn our opponent's active Pokemon. Not a great attack, but it's at least a 1 energy attack that we can use. It's better than doing nothing, I suppose. And if our opponent doesn't flip heads on their burn flip, then they might potentially start accruing some more damage across the game, but we don't want to be relying on that. Instead, we want to look at the second attack, which is Vengeful Flame. It does 100 damage for 3, which is pretty underwhelming, but it does an extra 100 if one of our benched fire Pokemon has any damage counters on them. So 3 for 200 is a lot better, although it is a little bit more awkward to work with. This attacker obviously not going to be able to take big knockouts on any VMAXs. It's also a little awkward to take knockouts on V Pokemon because lots of them have 210 HP, but we have a copy of Zigzagoon, so we can work it out if we have to. Plus, a lot of the cards in the deck at the format, at the moment are weak to fire, so we're happy to deal with that. Now, obviously, the second part of this attack means that we need to have damage on the bench. And if our opponent's not going to damage our Pokemon before we attack, we need to make sure that they are damaged ourselves. And the way we're going to do that is by using a couple of copies of Cinderace V from Rebel Clash. This card, obviously a decent attacker. It evolves into Cinderace VMAX, which we theoretically could include in this deck as well, but we're really using it here for its ability Field Runner. If there is a stadium in play, then this Pokemon has no retreat cost. Now that's pretty good because there's normally going to be a stadium in play, and the best thing is there's actually going to be a stadium in our deck that's going to synergize nicely with our Houndoom. We can use Spikemuth to put 2 damage counters onto our Cinderace when it retreats. Spikemuth puts 2 damage counters when a player moves its active Pokemon to the bench, so that's going to put 2 damage on our benched Fire Cinderace, which means that Houndoom V can start attacking for 200 damage. It's a bit of a combo, but if we can get it to work, then we might potentially be able to steal ourselves a few games. This deck obviously is very streamlined in a sense at the moment, that it is designed to just get that attack off. 200 damage sometimes isn't enough, so we might need to use Heatran-GX as a potential one-shot option. Hot Burn GX does 50 times the amount of fire energy attached to this Pokemon, and Burning Road, oh my goodness, Burning Road moves energy from the field of play onto this Heatran. So if we want to try and get a big one-shot, then we can potentially try and use Heatran, but that's going to take us a couple of turns to get to. We also have a Jirachi engine. There's 3 Jirachis here and 3 Dedenne. It's like a firebox build, I guess you could say, and a single Eldegoss so that we can search out Boss's Orders and Welder, which are the only 2 supporters we play. We play 4 copies of Welder to attach 2 fire energy from our hand and draw 3 cards, and we play 3 bosses so that we can take knockouts on specific targets. Since we are only dealing 200 damage, we need to make sure that we are hitting into the right target all the time, and Boss will help us do that, presuming that we already have our energy attached. The rest of the list is all about getting those Welders into our hand. We've got Quick Ball to search for Pokemon. We can find Dedenne with that as well. We've got Pokégear to try and find our welders so that we can attach our energies. And Fire Crystal so that we can grab energy that has been discarded back into our hand. We also have 2 copies of Giant Hearth as well, so we can discard a card from our hand and find 2 fire energy to attach to our Houndoom. We also play some switching options for copies of Switch in the deck. Can synergize with our Spikemuth, so if a Heatran or Houndoom is in the active, we could use Switch to retreat and then get those 2 damage ticks that way. We also have the Scoop Up Net, which obviously works with Jirachi and helps us with our Zigzagoon as well. So if we go up against something that has 210 HP, we can at least get a couple of knockouts that way. We have 1 Reset Stamp in the deck. We are likely to fall behind, and since we don't have any 3 prize Pokemon, we can force our opponent to take multiple prizes on things like Jirachis and Dedennes and then try and stamp them to a low hand size in the late game. That might potentially be a strategy for victory. Finally, 13 fire energy to round out this list. Now, I will say this much, if you want to play the deck, go for it. It's in the description down below. Take a look on the ladder yourself, but do not expect to win every game you play. This deck is clunky at the best of times, but when you do get that Vengeful Flame off, it is very satisfying. What we'll do is we will jump into a couple of games now, and hopefully we can show off the combo, if not Houndoom winning some games. Alright, let's take Houndoom into a game now. We're hoping that we can get this combo of attacks off. If we can, that would be fantastic. When it comes to coin flips with these types of decks, it's also very interesting to try and decide. We've won the coin flip here, so I think I'm going to go second. The reason for that is because I'm playing a Welder engine, and oh, this is a terrible start. A Dedenne-GX in the active and no other Pokemon is not a particularly strong sign. Yes, well, anyway, like I was saying, sometimes we want to go second with these types of decks because it allows you to do your Welder on the second turn of the game, the first turn that you get access to the card, which means that you are in a better position to start attacking earlier, which is really, really good. Now, we're going up against Stunfisk V here, that card that we featured on the channel very recently with Trapping Bite. This is a really, really cool Pokemon. Every metal energy that you attach to Stunfisk means it has 20 extra HP as well, so we need to be careful of that. That Quick Ball could have potentially found a Dedenne, but alas, there weren't any in deck. We'll grab Jirachi. Then we can at least switch into Jirachi and try and find a Welder. But first, let's thin a little bit. We can put an energy into our hand with the Viridian Forest. Probably could Giant Hearth, but not really worth doing. We've got a Welder, so at least I can play a supporter for the turn here. We'll Welder both energy in our hand onto Dedenne-GX and hope that we can find something. Okay, we've got Heatran. Heatran's going to be a good option for us to take the knockout on this Stunfisk because it means that we can grab, we can get ourselves a knockout with the GX attack if our opponent does get more energies on there. I've grabbed this Eldegoss for next turn. I probably don't need to do it right now, but if my opponent wants to money me, that's fine, because I'm going to get access to a bunch of cards anyway. We do have Jirachi. At the moment, Trapping Bite's only doing 60 damage, so we can't get knocked out by it unless our opponent finds Zigzagoon, which it doesn't look like they've done. It's very imposing, though, having a Stunfisk with a massive 290 HP because of that cape, which is very awkward. We'll discard the Houndoom with the Stadium Giant Hearth here. Stellar Wish, see if we can't find a Welder. We do find one. That's really, really good news. What we can do here is we can Welder onto the Houndoom on the bench, and that means that even if we miss a switch option, we can still have a powered attacker. We don't have to commit to our Heatran, and like I was saying, even if we miss a retreat option, we can potentially get going. Attachment here is an interesting one. I think it's going to go on Houndoom, just to make it a little bit easier for us to attack next turn if everything goes wrong. Now our opponent's going to be in a really strong position. They're going to be able to Trapping Bite again to take a knockout on this Jirachi. They could potentially even use this Pokemon communication to grab a Zigzagoon if they want to, although their hand is pretty small, so it depends what they've got access to. It looks like instead they're going for Crobat V, which is not a bad card for us to see come into play. It has less than 200 HP, so it's going to be easy enough for us to knock out Luckily, Stunfisk does have fire weakness, so Houndoom could potentially get a knockout on one of these, as can this Heatran on the bench. So we're looking pretty solid. Here's another Pokemon communication from our opponent, and that's going to shuffle Lucario and Melmetal into the deck. That could be a very frustrating card as well, knowing that the GX attack could potentially discard all of our energy, so it's worth looking out for that one. Here's the Zigzagoon, so they're going to probably take the knockout on my Jirachi, and that means they're going to take a prize, and I'm probably going to need to promote something like Dedenne here. I think Dedenne is the best option, because reality is they're probably going to Trapping Bite into this Dedenne with the metal resistance. It's only going to be 40 damage, and I'm not going to take any bonus damage from Trapping Bite on this Dedenne ever, so it's not a big deal. The last thing we want is to put all of that damage onto Houndoom V, which means that then our opponent could potentially use Zigzagoons for knockout. So this is probably the best place to be. Not entirely sure though. Looks like they're going for a switch here into Jirachi. Maybe looking for a supporter. I'm not sure if they've used a supporter this turn or not. I'm not sure. I don't think so. They may have done. And that probably means they've got another retreat option as well. But you'd think that if there was no real reason to do that, if they didn't need anything, then they might not have considered doing that in the first place. Anyway, Metal Source is going to attach energy to this Luca Metal. And now it is one step closer to removing all of my energy in play, which is very frightening. Here's the Scoop Up Net. The Jirachi comes back into play, and Stunfisk goes for the Trapping Bite. Right, so we are in a position now where we need to use the GX attack, I think, because Stunfisk has 200 plus 50 with the cape plus 40 with the energy. So we are going to need to GX attack with this Heatran to get the knockout, which is unfortunate, but it is the only way to get the knockout, and I think that is important. I also think that it's really important for us to get some extra energy into the field if we can. So hopefully this Pokégear finds ourselves a Welder, finds a boss, which is okay. Welder would have been better. We can always just use this Eldegoss to find Welder. That way we can accelerate some energy onto our Houndoom on the bench, and that will at least give us a backup attacker for next turn. There is a few good cards there. Fire Crystal Scoop Up Net is not useful for me right now. Neither is Stamp. Could play down this Houndoom. I don't know if it's a bad idea or not. I'll attach to it. That way, if we do find something like Spikemuth next turn, we can potentially get some damage on that Houndoom. There's one of our Dedennes. Fantastic. And a Quick Ball. So we're going to be able to do some stuff this turn. The question is our Heatran getting knocked out? Or is our opponent going to use their GX attack to try and remove our energy? The Jirachi coming down here. Obviously only 2 cards in hand. We know that their hand isn't particularly great, so it depends on what the Stellar Wish finds as to whether or not we're going to be worried. It's taking some time. Taking some time. Metal Saucer. Okay, so if there's a switch in my opponent's hand, they'll be able to get the GX attack off here. The Metal Saucer's coming down. You'd think that that means there's either a supporter or there is a second Metal Saucer. Okay. So we're attaching again. And then just a pass. Oh boy, yeah, that's a big sad from my opponent there. Because now, look at this. We'll be able to gust up that Lucario Melmetal, switch into the Houndoom. And because of the damage that was put onto our Heatran by the Stunfisk, we can actually get the Vengeful Flame off for 400 damage with that weakness, and that's going to have locked up the game, you would think. Now I've got 2 powered attackers. Well played from my opponent. Yes, that one seems to have wrapped it up. I'll give him the well played as well. But that's really unfortunate, not being able to switch, and that's potentially a reason not to have switched into that Jirachi in that 2nd or 3rd turn before the end of the game. Alright, we're on to another game here. I've enlisted the help of Blake for this one. He is going to be playing against me using the Sableye Arctozolt list that we featured on the channel a couple of days ago. The reason for that is I've been playing Houndoom for hours on the ladder trying to get a good game, and it's very, very difficult to work with. So I'm going to see if we can at least control the matchup so we can show off this deck taking some prizes. But yeah, probably a little bit of a risky pick on the ladder at the moment. We've got Jirachis, we've got Pokégear, We've got a couple of Fire Energy. We've got 2 extra cards from Mulligans as well. This is a really good start. As long as we can find a Welder with one of our Pokégears or our Jirachi, we'll have a Pokemon that we can use with that Quick Ball. We should be sitting relatively pretty. Here comes Sableye into play. So that's really strong from our opponent, getting that Sableye in early. The only thing they could do better really would be to get a heads flip on something like a Turbo Patch and then maybe set up a couple of fossils. Here comes a Turbo Patch, so we might see that heads flip. Turbo Patch coming down now. 50-50 chance of accelerating the energy that was put into the bin before. There's the heads. So 2 energy on a Sableye turn 1, but importantly, no fossils. So that's really good. And we find the Houndoom here. That is a fantastic top deck. Now we just need one of these Pokégears to hit. So it doesn't matter that we missed the first one. That's slightly more important. We can still get it off of the Jirachi. Okay, we'll get the Giant Hearth, I think, because that at least guarantees us some energy. Okay, we've kind of thrown this one straight away. We could have thinned with Quick Ball, but I didn't. I was too arrogant. That's okay. We can play down this second Jirachi, give ourselves another option. We can Quick Ball, get rid of a Fire Energy. We're going to go for Dedenne here. We don't really need Zigzagoon in this matchup, I don't think, so we'll just Dedenne it away and find a fresh set of cards. We've got a Welder, we've got a Cinderace as well, which is really good. We don't have a Switch yet, but we can discard this Fire Energy with Giant Hearth to find 2 more energy, and then Welder onto the Houndoom. Hopefully we find a Switch. Scoop Up Net. Nice. Okay, so we can scoop up the Jirachi, move the Houndoom into the active, and then Vengeful Flame for 200 damage onto a Jirachi to take our first prize, and that's a really good start for us. Relatively happy with that one because it means we're in the front foot, right? We're in a box seat to try and win this game. Black Market replacing Giant Hearth is quite frustrating. And a research from our opponent. They're not setting up as well as they would like, which is good for us because it means that we're going to get an opportunity to put some damage onto one of the Cinderaces that we have. We've got one in our hand and one on the bench. There's a Hooper, which is a solid target. I think that only has 90 HP, so we can boss this out and take a knockout with Vengeful Flame, which is really, really good. Our opponent going for Quick Ball here. We've got a Quick Ball of our own, so what we might do, we might discard the Jirachi with that Quick Ball, but I don't know if we need to really do anything apart from just play down a Houndoom and attach an energy. We will then, let's see, what's it worth doing? We'll just boss out this Hooper because it has, oh, hang on. Why did I think this had 90 HP? Oh my god, okay. Whatever, that's fine. Let's just resort to our next plan. We will Quick Ball away another Jirachi. Let's Dedenne. We're going to lose another boss. This sucks. This sucks. I suck. Oh my god. We've got double switch, but no Spikemuth. We could potentially switch into Jirachi to try and find it, but that would mean we wouldn't be able to get a knockout. I'm just going to go Searing Flame here. At least this Hooper can't do anything to us, right? It can't take 90 damage onto us because its Assault Gate attack will not affect us if it hasn't moved into the active this turn, which it hasn't. Oh, what an error. I'm so sad. So just for context, I'm recording this one the day after we recorded the POG Championships commentary for day 2, and I was up quite late last night, so I'm quite tired. Not that excuses can be made for such a stupid mistake. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us. The worst thing that could possibly happen here is that our opponent gets a couple of damage counters onto this Houndoom. I think it's going to be 3 required, and then a switch into Sableye. That would be horrific. There's one. Scoop Up Net coming down as well. This will be the second tick. Is it possible that we could lose this Houndoom off of such a terrible mistake? And Erica's Hospitality for 6 cards. I told you this supporter is really strong. All that my opponent needs is a Zigzagoon and a switch card, and they'll be able to take a knockout. Here comes a second Sableye onto the field. They finally managed to get down a fossil. But apart from that, there's not a lot happening over there. Could I have been saved by my own stupidity an energy attached to the Sableye. And now what? 6 cards in hand. Could there be a switch? Could there be a Zigzagoon? Just a pass. Okay, cool. So, never punished. We'll just attach to this Houndoom. And then probably just Vengeful Flame. We don't need to do, or we can't really do anything else anyway. And that'll even our prize trade up. Finds ourselves a 3rd Dedenne as well, which is really sweet. So yeah, this is not a bad position to be in the sense that we can now at least take 2 more knockouts to win the game. We're ahead on the prize trade in that way. Our opponent using Marnie here, so they're going to shuffle our hand and put it on the bottom of the deck. We don't have access to those switches anymore, but we do have access to Spikemuth and a couple of Scoop Up Nets, so we might be able to get a playoff here where we do power that Houndoom up and attack using the Spikemuth Cinderace combination. Our opponent managing to get that Zigzagoon tick on the active, which means that the knockout is achievable. And here comes our Jirachi into the active. We've got a Quick Ball here, so that'll fire the Dedenne if we want it. The question is how we're going to go about this. We could find Fire Crystal as an out. So let's thin away one of these. We'll grab ourselves the Dedenne. We've got 3 crystals left, so we definitely can find it off of Stellar Wish. We could even just go for the Houndoom, right? If we want to be really risky, we could just grab 2nd Houndoom and then hope for the best. It'd be a brave call to do that. Maybe should have Stellar Wished first. The Dedenne does seem like the best option, but I'm a risky boy, so let's go for this Houndoom, I think. Because if it works, oh boy, if it works, it's going to be good. So let's go for it. Our opponent has 2 powered Sableyes, but they have no way to damage us yet. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We've got to roll the dice here. Let's Stellar Wish, see what we've got. We've got a Quick Ball. That's okay. Because what we can do here is we can scoop up the Jirachi, put the Cinderace in the active, play down the Houndoom, play down the Spikemuth, Quick Ball the Jirachi away, and then Dedenne this hand. So it didn't end up being too bad. Obviously wasn't ideal, but wasn't awful. So here we go, Dedenne. All we need to do is find an energy, which we've found. We can attach that to Houndoom, then retreat with Cinderace. That'll put 2 ticks of damage onto it with the Spikemuth, and then we Vengeful Flame for 200 damage onto Sableye V and grab ourselves 2 prize cards. Much better. That worked out. I'm happy with that. Our issue here is, though, that if our opponent manages to get a knockout on Houndoom this turn, they are going to put a lot of pressure on us to find something off of the top deck, because we have no Jirachi, we have no Dedenne, we have very few Quick Balls left, if any, maybe 1, to find Eldegoss. So we could potentially be top decking for our life here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all. Looks like a Scoop Up Net coming down here. We haven't seen any Arctozolt yet, which is very unfortunate. Here comes that Zigzagoon tick. And maybe, looks like, actually, yeah, it looks like what might be lining up here is an attack onto that benched Cinderace. Perhaps my opponent going, okay, well, if they can, then they're going to remove the damage from the field so that it makes it hard for me to return the knockout. But that is great, because it means that there's going to be a Sableye in the active. All I need is an energy or a switch to move that Houndoom from the active into the bench, take 2 ticks with Spikemuth to win the game, and I think it's going to be able to happen, unless, of course, one of the last 3 cards in my opponent's hand is a Reset Stamp, which would cause a lot of problems. Is there a stamp, or is it just going to be the attack Crazy Claws from Sableye? What's it going to be? It's taking a bit of time. It's Crazy Claws. Okay, cool. So we've got the game here now. We can retreat the fresh Houndoom into the one that has 3 energy on it, get the ticks with Spikemuth, and then take the knockout. I don't know how we've managed to do it, but we've just managed to steal ourselves a game here. Vengeful Flame takes the victory, and Houndoom getting across the line there. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, not necessarily a world beater, but definitely a fun little combo that you can set up. I know there are some other channels featuring these kind of decks as well, so if you want to go and check out their lists, that would be more than acceptable. I'd be happy to compare notes on these kind of things, because it's always hard with those rogue decks. You never know exactly how the best way to build them is, but I think we've got a decent option here to get Houndoom attacking for 200, most turns. Let's not say every turn, most turns. Anyway, if you've liked this one and you want to see more, then please consider subscribing. Click the button that's above the Sableye head right now to do that. On the left-hand side are a couple of videos that YouTube thinks you'll like, and on the bottom right is our playlist for more Darkness Ablaze deck lists and gameplay. Thank you everyone for coming along. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.